Okay, so in this part of the exercise, we're going to look at the pathfinder tools, and we will also look at how to move information and graphics over to a packaging template. So in this part, let's go ahead and again, I want to work over on our extra artboard. And I'm just going to get rid of this extra text stuff that's floating around out here. And to work with the Pathfinder tools, we're going to open them up from the window menu and go all the way down to where it says Pathfinder. All right. Okay, so this is what the basic Pathfinder tools look like. You have shape modes and you have pathfinders. So hold on, there's a little stray image. So there's things that we can do with this as far as creating new objects, deleting pieces from objects, doing subtractions, additions, trimming, cropping, and so on. All of these are very good for dealing with adjusting line artwork. So first off, I'm just going to draw a few shapes inside my design area, and I'm going to have them overlapping. That's important. So make sure you've got some that are overlapping. And then I may also create some shapes that overlap that use some different color properties, like this ellipse. I think I'm going to change it up and make it blue and give it like a stroke line.
These hexagons get so big so quick.
All right, and then I'm going to overlap some of these guys. All right. So we have a couple different forms to start working with to test out the tools. So the first things that I want you to kind of be thinking about is you think about how can I use the Pathfinder tools to benefit me. Number one, when working inside of a vector art program, it's very easy to add and add and add and add and add and add and add some more shapes and overlapping objects until we don't realize that we've been drawing over the same shapes over and over. Or we've been drawing invisible shapes and we've forgotten. And so now your document is completely littered with forms and shapes that are taking up unnecessary space in the document. And also, if you're not lucky, if you're unlucky, they pop up when you print in different softwares. And so suddenly when a line was invisible on screen, suddenly becomes visible again, is not very helpful when you want to print it. So simplification is usually what you want to do. So in the case of this graphic that I created here, where they're all the same color and they're kind of overlapping, the first thing that I'll tell myself is that it's nice that they're all here and they're all still kind of editable. I can move around and do whatever. But once you've set them into place, at that point, it's no longer necessary for them to be independent objects, okay? At that point, it's much better to make a clean vector out of them by sewing them all together or uniting them. So one way we could do that is using one of these shape modes up here. So I'm going to select all of my black rectangles. And I'm going to go up here to shape modes, and there's an option, the first one, called Unite. When you click on Unite, everybody becomes a buddy. Literally. And so everybody's together now. You know, it's like one big body of objects. No more little in-between lines or overlapping forms. It is one streamlined vector. Okay. And that was using the Unite command from shape modes. Now I'm going to hit Command Z to undo and do a different one this time. So this time I'll use the one next to Unite, which is called minus front. And when you click minus front, it deletes every shape underneath the top layer, but it subtracts any parts of those bottom layers that intersect with the top layer. So in my design, only one little object actually overlapped my first object. Now I could move them around and make things a little more interesting, right? And then do this all over again. And now I get that shape instead. And that's minusing off of the front or top layer is what that's doing. So when you're doing that, you have to actually be kind of mindful of what you're subtracting from. Like if you wanted to make like concentric circles that cut away from each other, or a square that cuts out another square, for instance, you want to make sure that you pay attention to the order of the layers. That way you can cut out layers and make a compound shape out of them. All right. So there's that. You also have some other shape modes you can kind of play with and see what they do. Like there's intersection, which is kind of a basic, but it only works when you use intersect. You have to have two shapes active only and that are overlapping. And so it leaves behind whatever area they were both touching each other at. This leftover little region right here. Now this effect can act very differently if your shapes have lots of appearance options turned on. Like for instance, these circles I drew down below that have a stroke outline and a fill. If I unite these shapes, suddenly that extra outline goes away, right? Because now they're buddies. And now it's just one big shape instead. So you have to kind of be careful when you're molding or bringing things together. Like if I try to combine this shape, this black rectangle, and this circle, what happens is that the dominating top shape is what wins in terms of appearance options. So the black gets removed and the stroke and the color gets applied instead. And that's because the circle was the top layer. If the black rectangle had been top, then it would have overtaken the colors of the circle. All right. Then the other options below Pathfinder are also things like divide, trim, crop. And these can be helpful also with, again, trimming up shapes, or even leaving pieces behind. So watch this. I'm going to select all the rectangle pieces. And I'm going to click on Divide from the Pathfinder section. Now when I click on Divide, nothing appears to happen. But if I deselect my shape and then move over it with my mouse, I can see that there are actually lots of pieces that have been broken off of that shape. But if I try to click on it, the whole thing selects. So what's happened is that Divide by proxy also creates what's called a group inside of Illustrator, or a grouping. So if you ever want to break up a group inside of Illustrator, you select the thing that's grouped together, and then you right-click on it or control-click and go to Ungroup. And then deselect. And now if you go back, you can click on each of the pieces and take it apart. You kind of get this little Tetris matrix. All right. So that's how we can play with Pathfinder in a basic way. Other great ways to use this tool are to help trim edges off of designs that are unnecessary. Like, for instance, if I wanted my design to be fit within an artboard and I didn't want my design to go off the edge necessarily, I might draw, for instance, a giant shape that goes around the perimeter of my artboard. And you don't have to have a fill color on it. Say no fill, but we'll give it a stroke. Why not? So we can see it. So I drew a giant rectangle that covered the entire perimeter of my shape area. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the pieces that are overlapping the outer edge. I'm going to draw a selection box around those so that it grabs, hopefully, so it grabs my shapes and my outline so that I can intersect these things. And what I'll do is I'll come in and you can actually, excuse me, we can use things like crop to cut off the edge so that it slices off anything that goes outside the upper level, the upper layer rectangle. We could use divide if we wanted to. The problem with divide is that if you do that, then it suddenly adds a stroke line that goes across the base border of the shapes. So you get funny options that can sometimes occur when your shapes have other appearance options like stroke turned on. But it's a quick way to cut off outside edge areas that you don't want visible. And it allows you to do it in a way that's a clean cut. There are ways to mask out vectors, but it is not, again, it's not really a clean way to get rid of vector imagery in a design. But if you cut off the vector clean, then it's no longer there, period. And that's how you can work with Pathfinder. All right. Now, the last part of what we're going to work on in the demo for demo number 3 is to look at moving imagery over and importing templates. Depending on the needs of your project, you may or may not need an actual packaging template. What I want you to kind of take from this next part is understanding how you apply your design concepts across to a physical item or a separate item. Now that you've established a whole bunch of it inside of your poster, we need to be able to move things over and continue them. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff in the other artboard. And we're going to open up or place one of the parts of the packaging template into this document. So we're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Place. Again, if you have not downloaded the packaging demo from Blackboard, then you need to get that secured on your computer. But I'm going to go in and select the PDF for the template multi-sheet box. And I'm going to go to Place. And when I get Place opened up, I get this dialog box that appears. And if yours doesn't have this option pop up where it allows you to change like the crop to option, don't worry about it. It really doesn't matter. But what it allows you to do on this is actually pick, if it's a multi-page PDF, which one you want to edit or open. So if you have one, if you know which one you're working on or which one you want to open first, start with that. Again, in the case of this template, it came in a multi-page document. Most templates come on one sheet because they assume you're just going to print off to a single sheet of paper of some kind. So I'm going to open up this first one here, page 1 of 6, and say OK. And then to place it, I have to draw it out on screen. Now, this is where it's kind of like there's two ways you can do this. Number one, when you're placing, you get the option of sizing it, right? Like that's kind of the nice thing. The problem with placing also is that if it's for an object design and you need to bring in multiple sides that are all separate, if you get one missized, then the whole package can't be put together correctly because of the difference in scaling. So for the moment, we could drag one out here and create it on screen. The other way you can also do it is just open the PDF into a separate document by going to File, Open, doing the same thing, And it'll open your PDF in a separate doc, but you could actually just select everything, copy it to the clipboard, go back to your document over here and paste it in, and you can get it. And it'll paste it in at the size it's supposed to be, which is not that far off from what I designed, actually, so not bad. Should give myself a pat on the back for that.
Congrats.
All right. So now that we have that pasted in, we now have one side of the packaging template in here. Now, if you notice in the PDF, there are 6 separate pages, okay? So you want to make sure that you get all 6 brought in. So go ahead and grab all 6. So keep going. You may have to, again, like when you're editing a PDF, it's weird. But you have to close out the document you already opened. And then go and file open again. Until you get all of your pages.
So,
I opened it.
how do you get all the other sheets? Because I had it and then I saved it as a PDF, and now whenever I go to place, it only does this one.
Yeah, did you switch the PDF page number when you did place?
No, but it didn't have a pop-up for it.
Oh, you have to close, make sure you also close the other document while you're at it. If you open a PDF, it sometimes reads back to it. That's why I'm just opening up the document, going to File Open, I choose the PDF, choose a new page.
Are we opening everything, like all 6?
It only allows you to open one at a time
Yeah.
because of the nature of the editor. So you open each, you want to get all 6 of the pieces out of that document and into your Illustrator document though. But the way you have to do it is that if you already have it open once, you have to take that out of there, paste it into your doc, then close out whatever tab it opened, or it's going to give you trouble trying to reopen it. So, go in, grab each of your pieces. Again, if you run out of room on your artboard, no big deal. You can actually paste it out in the open area beyond your artboard. And in a second, I'll show you how to create additional artboards so you have places to put them. And again, I'm just going in, opening it up, and getting each page, piece, component.
It's a bigger one.
Oh, look. You opened it and then you drag and select all of those? Like you drag it and you select it. Oh, I think it
That one,
was
and then one more.
All of them. So you see, like, you open it. You open the first page, right? So I'm doing like now before it. Yeah. Like it was.
All right. Now, how's everybody doing with opening up documents?
Where do you have trouble opening like this?
Okay, so when you open it up, initially when you open the PDF, it opens one page of it, right? And what you have to do at that point is copy that document out of that PDF into your document, and then close whatever it opened up, and then reopen the PDF and select a new page. If you leave the PDF open, like, it may give you trouble.
What if I somehow manage to break it?
Awesome. That's awesome.
Ah, I see.
But at the end, you should have 6 sides to your object to make a complete sort of cube form.
You know, if you're feeling complete that day. Unless you just want to make like 3 sides. You know. You ever just do that for package design, Caleb?
Only for open concepts.
Ah, that was good fun.
So yeah, make sure you get them all in. And I'm going to show you guys how to make an artboard to add these to. So obviously you're going to run out of room on your sheet of paper. Okay, your basic artboard that you started with. You should. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make some separate artboards to drop these onto. So to do that, we're going to go over to our toolbar and go down, and there's actually an artboard tool towards the bottom. It looks like a rectangle with little registration marks around the corners. And when you turn it on, it actually activates your artboard that you're currently on screen. And it allows you to click and drag out brand new artboards on screen as well. And again, to get to the artboard tool, you just go down towards the bottom of your toolbar. And the artboard tool is this one that looks like a rectangle with little registration corners. Turn it on, and then come out, and you can click and draw separate artboards into your screen. Now they can be arbitrarily sized, but you can drop them down and you can resize them at the top where your tool options are. So if you have one selected, you can get to those options. Now my screen is kind of unfortunate because of the projection. It cuts off part of my toolbar up here at the top. So I have to go into the actual like artboard options dialog to show you this part. So artboard options is just this little icon right here that looks like a document with bullet points and lines. And if you open it, it pulls up this options dialog, and you can also change the width and height of your document inside that area. So if you know that you're going to be printing to an 8x10 or an 8.5 by 11, you'll want to switch those out to 8.5 by 11. The good news is that if you make one artboard that's the right size, you can actually duplicate them the same as you can anything else. You can also hold down Option to quick copy stuff by dragging. So if you hold Option and click and drag on an object, it will pull a copy out of that object. If you want to pull out copies of an artboard that you've drawn, you can hold down the Option key on your keyboard and then click and drag copies out. And you can do that with anything in Illustrator. You can do it with image elements you've designed, text, anything. Yeah, it's a quick way to copy or make a carbon copy. But once you get those established, exit the art tool, the artboard tool. The reason for exiting it that's important, guys, is that if you keep clicking around with that on objects, it converts every object into a new artboard. So you have to be very, very sensitive.
Like a vector? Like
well, not like that, but it will make a new artboard for every single thing that you click on. So if I clicked on a random shape, it would suddenly design an artboard to fit it. And so that's great, but it can also be problematic. Yeah, to exit the tool, just go to a new tool, like the arrow tool at the top of your toolbar, and that'll get out.
I think we tried getting the templates onto the
Getting the what?
The template?
Okay, make sure that the templates are hollow and they are individual layers. The only way you can get them is drawing a selection box around them. That's the easiest. So when I do it, like I zoom in to where that part of the template is big on screen, and I will draw a selection box around the entire thing first. And then if you're going to move it, you have to click along the path lines because it doesn't have any fill colors. So you can't just click on the center of the template and hope to move it when there's nothing there. That's one of those nuances when working with vectors that's different than working with photographs. If there's nothing there, you can't click on it. But again, get all of your images onto separate artboards. If you did it right, you should have, you know, something on each artboard. You might have 6 artboards, or you may have 5, you know. But you should have everything established somewhere. All right. Now that we've got some artboards thrown out there and we've got our templates arranged and moved around to sit on top of those artboards respectively, now we can actually start moving around some graphics and applying our design methods across the board. So, depending on your scheme of things, you kind of decide based on your color theme where you want to run with a base color for the object. Now this can vary from the poster in the sense that if you use like black for your text, you could use black for your object instead. Again, to sort of initiate some visual variation. Not to use new colors that you have never used before, but to simply change up their purposes. Sometimes can help. Especially if you have objects or more than one object, this can be helpful, again, in creating variation, but still maintaining theme. So let's say I want to add like a solid background color to these. I just need to start off with a rectangle, in this case. And I'm just going to draw one that overlaps this first shape. And I'm going to fill in this rectangle with one of my swatch colors. And I'm going to make sure it doesn't have a funky stroke on it like it does right now. And of course, when you drop a new shape in, it draws on top as the top layer. So immediately, we have to send this thing way down in the layer stack to deal with this. Which is going to be a long ways down. So now, there are a couple things that we may want to consider at some point when working with layers inside of Illustrator. If you start busting stuff out into separate artboards, I would start recommending using multiple layers inside of your layer panel for different artboards so you keep stuff organized. So instead of just having one layer that keeps everything tied into it, you may want to generate a brand new layer from the bottom of the layer panel. Let me move this up so y'all can see it. From the bottom of the layer panel, and then go into the layer that you're currently in, and take this layer and move it into the next layer, because the truth is, again, leaving everything in the same artboard together for the sake of organizing layers gets messy. But I can drag this one layer up that I'm about to draw into this layer and pull it into layer 2. And then when I can find all the respective components for this other layer, then I can also move those as well. So I can already tell if I slide down my layer stack where all the pieces are from this particular template. Again, they go down fairly far into the design. So one thing you can do here is you can kind of go through the list and select the pieces you need. This is just an example to show you how to do it. But you would go through and grab all the pieces and put them all together, again, so that they can all be in the same document later. Let me see if I can't just select them. Here we go.
This thing is so slow.
Yeah, not so much. Okay. All right. Well, we can work with that later. But sometimes, again, it's good to move things into the same layer together if possible. Another recommendation I might have, like when you're working with your own file, is to make sure that you are creating a new layer for new artboards, okay? And then move new design elements directly into those first before you start going crazy. So now that I've got this in here, I can start backing it down in the list, or I can just take it, since it's in its own layer, I can just drag this down below and it'll be instantly below all other design elements.
So now, is that going to print off with the red lines also and the blue
Yeah,
dotted
so
lines?
anything, like visually, anything that's there is printable.
Okay.
The question is if you want it there or not,
Okay.
and what purpose does it serve. So, and that's stuff that I'll talk about when we talk about printing, what you can do to minimize the appearance of these things for the sake of making an object out of them. But for now, we're going to leave them for clean reference so we know what we're doing. All right. So once you got a shape behind your template, then you can start making choices about what type of imagery you want to replicate inside this area. Now, we know that this is going to make a cube box shape. In Blackboard, I've made a link available to you on a website called Template Maker. And they have a lot of wonderful, easy, user-friendly like template designs that you can build objects from, simple objects. Everything from just your basic box, milk carton, a bag, a heart. That one's a little late. Should have done that for Valentine's Day. An envelope, a sphere, cylinder, container that you can hold another object inside of, cones, and so even a coffin. But you get a little bit of everything in here. So there's quite a bit, and the beauty of this website that I like is that you can actually input direct information to manipulate the size of it, so you get exactly what you want. So I could switch the values to inches, and since I'm working with the multi-sheet box, which is what I told you guys to use for the demo only, the reason I point that out is that this gives you the ability to break the object down into multiple pieces and see how it's done, so that you can print each piece on a separate sheet of paper. That way you can make a much larger object if you need to. The big problem with a lot of other templates is that they are all sewn together. So if you don't know how to cut them out into pieces separately and then move them to separate artboards and reconnect them, you'll have trouble later. And you can only print to a certain sheet size of paper unless you have access to an industrial printer, right? And sadly, probably not. So that's why I show you the multi-sheet, like how they build it. The important thing is including tabs and places to glue walls and pieces together at the end of the day, which is what the template shows in your design in the demo file, is just to see that part. So if I go to this particular template, this is what it shows me. It gives me the rundown of, like, kind of generally this is how it fits together. These are the dimensional options you can set for it. These are the other settings you can set, like the tuck, the dust, glue, margin, and all of that. The file extension you can output. And it gives you brief instructions down here, like how to assemble it. And they're pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and it just shows you where each piece goes, which is really convenient at the end of the day. So you know, like, how your box is going to be assembled, which part is the front, the back, and the sides, the top, and the bottom. And if you look at in Illustrator, each of your pieces, when you imported them, have a little chunk of text underneath each template, and those tell you which piece is which. So mine says this piece is the back, and it says that this little piece is the top, and this is probably the front, yep, with the little finger tab. So you kind of, with the convenience of that side, is that you know what you're getting and where it needs to go, ultimately. And that's really helpful. There are a lot of templates out there that probably won't have all of this information. So just be aware of that if you go hunting for your own, or if you make something for yourself. It doesn't hurt to look at sites like that and find ways that you can combine templates together, like to make a new shape, glue them together and find and make something new. Is also something you can think about. But again, when you're moving design elements, ultimately, you're looking for things to, again, make sure that you're uniting the design together and bringing it together. So one side of your object might have a blue wall, and it might actually copy your title text to it, for all I know. So I can actually copy over my title. I'm going to select it and copy and paste it and move it over to this part of the design. And then I'm going to rotate it to fit. Now, if you did not convert your text boxes into point type, the type is not going to rotate with the box. So you may need to double click on the little circle that pokes out from the type box to make it to where you can rotate it and the type stays or rotates accordingly. And again, you're just looking for things to carry similarities between the design. Play with the color scheming. Figure out which visual elements you want to have tied together between the two, between the object and the poster. Obviously, we have things like we've established like a mouth, or we've established coding language. We've also established a computer screen. All of those things lend options that we can design with over in our receiving object. So I'm going to copy over this shape here and just make a duplicate to go behind this one. And I may actually have that side also say language, so I may copy this over and move it to the other side and rotate it to where it reads in the opposite direction, just to create some visual variation in the design. And then in my other artboards, I've got the other pieces out here. So I've got like the front, the back, and the top and the bottom. So if I want to maintain my color scheme, I can keep using my blue if I want to. That doesn't mean you can't have accent parts to an object, by the way. Not every object has to be the same color all the way around. You can totally accent it by changing up the color of several of its walls to make it read differently. All right, and again, you may replicate design elements. Everything from like the mouth, you may transform and bring back in some way into your main design for the object. So I may drag a copy of it out. Drop it in. Now it doesn't have to stay the same color, okay? Again, everything is kind of variable when you move to the box. And we can even bring in that crazy coding pattern that we created earlier if we want to. And sometimes it's good, guys, whenever you're designing something that has a cutting line around it, that sometimes it's good to make sure that your designs can be full bleed. If they are colors that are supposed to fill the entire shape, make sure they're bigger. If it's a pattern and it's supposed to cover the entire shape, make sure it's bigger. That way that it covers it effectively. So again, you go all the way around, making your way around the shape, and adding design elements, again, along the way that connect the design together. And again, you can use different parts of your information paragraphs to also tie into the object design concept. If this was a finished object, you might even include something on the inside that people could take out of it, right? And that could be another way to remove information from it so it doesn't have to be around the outside of the design if you don't want it to be. Now, if you recall, there are a couple lines of subtitle text that you can also use if you want to, that are not currently that may or may not be in your design yet. So if you recall from like the demo sketch, there's information in there like that says "Join the coding revolution" or "There is power in language." And so if we wanted to add those extra titles in, we could go in and make adjustments for that as well. So increase the size of this piece that I'm working with right here.
Sir?
Yeah.
How can I group shapes into one?
If you want to group shapes together so they all move
Yes.
at once, sure. So you select all the shapes that you want to work with.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna drag. I'm gonna drag a big selection around all of this template right here. And then once you have them all selected, then you can control click on any one of them after they're in their selection group and go to group. And when you do that, now you can move them and they all move together, or when you click on one, they all select at the same time.
So control click.
Yeah, with these with the mouse on these computers, you can use control click. But sometimes right clicking, if your mouse is programmed to do it, you can also use that.
Okay. Thank you.
But likewise, if you're done grouping an object, you can always control click or right click on it again to ungroup it.
Yeah, I finished
My project 2 exercise, like I finished and the documents loaded in here, but it won't let me go past it.
Hmm.
And I've already loaded it up twice.
I'll look at that. All right. So again, you'll finish out working with the packaging template and applying the designs across the board. Again, have fun with playing with the visual hierarchy in the design, working with the text, and the imagery, utilizing all sides of the packaging. All right. And we will stop the demo right there.